Welcome to the Silver Bullets podcast on the Ozone Radio Network, your authority on all things Ohio State. And now, here are your hosts, WVABuckeye and Charles at the BBC, to discuss the women's basketball team, String Ting. Buckeye Nation, welcome to another edition of the Silver Bullets podcast on the Ozone Radio Network. This is String Ting, episode 3. I'm your host, Shannon Sommers, director of the Ozone Radio Network, producer of Acosta Field with Tony Gerdeman, and contributor at Hayes and Cannon. Today I'm joined by WVABuckeye. We're here to talk about women's basketball, and we have a special guest on today, Patrick Klein, the associate head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. Patrick, how are we doing today?
Doing well. Cold here in Nebraska.
And it's cold here in Ohio, too. Chris, I'll let you go ahead and start it off.
All right. Well, first let me say hi to Charles BBC, who couldn't be here today, entertaining family for the holiday week, who is normally here on String Ting, and obviously thank my longtime good friend Patrick for joining us and giving us some Ohio State women's insights. Like, I really got to say, unlike anybody else before, I feel very privileged and blessed to have you here, Patrick, just for the simple fact that nobody else is trying to shine the light on the program like we are as far as podcasts go. And I thank you for joining us for this Big Ten preview.
Well, I'm excited to be here, and obviously we really appreciate the support, our fans, Buckeye Nation, and it's a special team, so I think there's a lot to talk about today.
Yes, sir, there is. And before we dive into the questions, what can you tell us about Coach Mitchell and the social media darling that he's become here lately?
Oh, man, he's the best. We can get a lot of golden nuggets from him, that's for sure.
I love the head buster. He spends a lot of time interacting with fans and people on Twitter, and he's definitely an inspiration to what he's been able to accomplish himself, being able to coach both of his daughters in high school and now college, and he's got to be living the dream.
Yeah, I think he would agree. He's really enjoying his time here, and obviously the opportunity to see his kids grow and be a part of this is just something that's really special to him and his family.
Absolutely. And you mentioned before we jumped on the air about how special this Ohio State team is and talking about the Big Ten coming up, which incidentally, as we are recording this, the Buckeyes are getting ready to take on Nebraska down in the deep freeze of Nebraska later today. And of course, we'll follow up at another time with results of that game and the next few Big Ten conference games, which, prior to starting conference play today, Patrick, what are your impressions of the season so far?
I think we had an incredible preseason so far. We still technically have one more preseason game with South Florida, which will be a really great challenge for us. The last time I looked, I think we were number 8 in the RPI. I think that's a great feat. Coach McGuff has always been under the mindset of play the best if you want to be the best. And I think this year we definitely did that with 2 games against Stanford, who will compete for a Pac-12 championship. We went on the road and faced Florida, who is in the SEC. Obviously, we were on the road against Duke and we fell, but those are the lessons that you learn later on that come back to help you win a big game in the Big Ten. And I think that this has been a great preseason. We've played a lot of different types of games, a lot of different types of teams that will help us prepare for the Big Ten. And it's also allowed us to see, what we're going to be about and what our strengths are and where we need to get better. And, Coach McGuff, when we came back from Christmas, talked about some of those small details that we can get better, that we have control of to make sure that we compete in the Big Ten.
What has been the biggest surprise so far this season for you?
Well, I think that anytime you start a season, your mind goes back to last season. And I think that this has proven that that's not enough because of our kids' work ethic in the offseason. I mean, I think that obviously Kelsey has done an incredible job to continue to grow her game. She has a lot of personal goals to reach and to meet this year, and she's done a great job leading us so far. Another one that really stands out is Stephanie Mavunga, who has spent a lot of time and energy changing her body and in the off season and her diet, and it's paid off. I think that she's really impressed. Her motor, her speed, and what she's been able to do on the offensive glass is really hard to play against. I can't express that enough. I get to do it some days in practice, and just the relentless effort on the offensive glass has been incredible. Asia Doss spent a lot of time in the offseason, and it's really paid off. She's first off one of the best players we have on our team to create for others. And her 3-point percentage, she's hit some really big threes in big games. I mean, I didn't mention this earlier, but Louisville was a great experience for us. Go into overtime, play one of the top 5 teams in the country, a great game on national television. And Asia Doss really kept us in that game. And then Lene Harper, I think that she has been so impressive in consistency with being on the offensive and defensive glass. She's nearly averaging a double-double, but it's just been incredible to see her growth in this offseason. And then last, Sierra Calhoun is shooting the ball, started out not so great from the 3-point line, but a kid that really believes in hard work and has done a great job to get her 3-point shot and her rhythm back on, was really big in Cincinnati. And I think if you go down the list, there's a ton of great players and they're all adding something. Those are ones that stick out. And KK, who's not playing right now due to an ankle injury, but I think she was like plus 40 in a plus minus a game this year. And I can't express, when she's on the floor, how well we move as a team.
I want to get a little bit more specific about what you said about Stephanie Mavunga enjoying her 1,000th rebound here recently in the preseason conference matchups I believe in the Florida game, which was one of those kind of games where you had to have Stephanie step it up on the offensive boards. And Charles and I have discussed that need this season for there to be that type of a force rebounding the basketball. Are the Lady Buckeyes there yet, Coach? Are they the kind of force on the boards that you want them to be as a team?
If you look at the stats, I think we're plus 4 against our opponents in total rebounds and rebounding margin. I think, and I think this really comes from Coach McGuffin. I think he's exactly right. I think that if we win the rebounding war, we're going to win a lot of those games. And so I will tell you that that's going to be a stat that we look at in the Big Ten. And if we can stay in that plus margin, I think we're going to be really hard to defend. And I can't express to you how tough it is to defend a team for 20 seconds or however long it may be, and Stephanie Mavunga or Lene Harper gets an offensive rebound and put back. It's deafening to a defense.
Yeah, I'd definitely agree with that. Charles and I have talked off podcast many times about that kind of presence, and he and I both have officiated, not the Division I level, but D2 college women's and D3 and other types of women's college basketball, to where that shot clock can be a pretty good tool for a great defensive team, and sometimes it can be it can work against them. I think you guys have been doing a great job of keeping that mentality here in the early going.
I would like to say that it's us, but I think that it's just the kids, man. I really believe that they just have that dog and that knack for the basketball, and it's just a part of their game, and it's what makes them really special. And there's some really, if you look at Kelsey Mitchell, she's getting nearly 4 rebounds a game. Sierra Calhoun the same. And like, those are really big deals for us to be an elite basketball team and compete with the top 10 in the country. Our guards have to continue to get big rebounds, but offensively really making them pay. because what it does is it stops transition offense. And, that's one of the areas where we need to grow. And as long as we stay committed to rebounding on the offensive side, it can really stop and really hold people back to rebound so that they're not getting easy baskets on the other end.
Probably the only way you're going to consistently be able to compete with the UConns of the world, the Marylands, those type of teams, which is where Ohio State women's basketball is wanting to be right now.
Correct.
All right, so I think you've already kind of answered this question with your Louisville comment, but what would you say has been the most important game or moment so far? Charles and I thought the last time we spoke that going down and beating a Florida Gator team that has practically been unbeatable in their own gymnasium over the years really sent a pretty good message of where the team is right now. But just your mention of what you guys did with Louisville and double overtime on the road national television might seem that you guys feel differently.
Well, I'm going to actually go back to a game, Stanford, in the Thanksgiving tournament. We played 3 games in 3 days. The game before, we had an incredible performance against a very, very good and well-coached Florida Gulf Coast team. And we come out, and we're not really deep. And so, those first couple games, we were lucky and fortunate enough to play some players, but we're going into that third game against a very good Stanford team who was young and different 2 weeks ago before we played them because they've gotten experience. And we get down, they're playing really well. They have a great leader. And we come back to win that game in overtime and made some really tough plays. And I will tell you that in the past, we're not winning those games. And so to me, and probably if you asked our staff, that was a turning point for us, a toughness turning point. And I look back at that game and think about how Asia Doss took over in overtime to help push us to victory.
Outstanding. Yep. I never would have picked that, but that's the mind of a full-time fan versus the mind of the guy that's doing a lot of the coaching during the game. So I can definitely understand why you see that game as being the one.
Who do you think in the Big Ten hasn't gotten the attention they deserve and are more dangerous than people realize?
I'm going to go with 2 teams. The first one I think is Michigan State. I think that they're going to be a really tough team in the Big Ten. They always get better. Coach Merchant does a great job in preparing our team. And, they just have a toughness and edge to them. And I think they're really hard to play against, and especially they're hard to play against away. And luckily we don't play at Michigan State, which always makes me happy when I see that on the schedule. But I also think that they have a young kid that Sydney Cooks that is, it's tough for a freshman to come into an elite team and really impact them right away. Very rarely does it happen. But I think through time, she's going to grow as a player. And as she grows, their team will be better. They've got some really good players. They have a transfer. So I think a lot of it is just for them getting to play together. I think they're going to be in the top third of the Big Ten. And compete for a title. And then the last team that I think is Iowa. I think Iowa made the top 25. And again, another really hard team to play. You can't really mimic them in practice. And they're just so well disciplined and well coached. And really hard to play in Iowa City. And we go there on Thursday, January 25th, and it's going to be a war. So I think those 2 teams really stand out to me as teams that will compete for a Big Ten title and deserve a little bit more attention from the national press.
To add to that, Patrick, what's the one team that you wouldn't expect to give you guys fits but may?
I'm going to say Nebraska. We're here now, and I think that they're going to be tough to play. No, I think everybody in the Big Ten. There's so many great coaches. When you're picked as a preseason Big Ten number 1 in the league, you have a bullseye on your back. you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds that have a lot going on with classes and relationships and families. Every day is a battle. And it's a mental battle. It's a preparation battle. It's an injury battle. It's a foul trouble battle. And so in the Big Ten, in order to win, it takes a lot of mental toughness and preparation. And so I actually would say all the teams, Coach.
That makes sense. I'm Charles and I are two guys that and Shannon was actually involved in this same conversation. He's admitted he's a football guy and a men's basketball guy. He has his own podcast that he does with a friend of ours from our BBC days, and but he's paying a lot more attention to women's basketball because of conversations we've been having in this podcast. And I tend to be always mindful of the Indianas and the Minnesotas because it seems like they always come with a little more than the teams that expect a battle, than a Michigan State or an Iowa or even in a Penn State. And I don't always have the ability to put my finger on it. They just seem to always be very well prepared for Ohio State.
Yeah, I think that that's a fair statement. I think that they're always, no one's afraid of you, and I think that that's what is hard for a lot of people. They look at the schedule and their record. They don't look at how much they don't and dislike Ohio State. And that motivation alone we get teams' best games. And I think that that's what a lot of people don't understand.
How do you keep the team focused, especially at the preseason? You see that you're the Big Ten favorites and one of the top teams in the country. I mean, how do you keep them focused in order to be able to realize these goals and reach their full potential?
I think you just got to have and talk about the growth mindset and how every day, personally, you got to really work to get better and to better your game and to grow. And we really believe at Ohio State under Coach McGuff that personal development is going to lead to better team development. And, then you also have to focus and deal with facts and watch film and evaluate yourself and be willing to have open and honest conversations about things that need to get better as a team and what can we do? What are the small details? And I think that, along with anything in business and in life, in order to go from good to great, you really have to focus in on the details. And what we're trying to do here is get better. This game, we got to be better than last game. Tomorrow in practice, we have to be better than we were today in this game. And as long as we stay true to that, as long as we continue to get better and focus on our development of our weaknesses, then we're going to be fine when it's all said and done. When we start allowing things from the outside to impact us, that's when it becomes harder. And so just to keep attention, to keep preparation, to keep focus, that's what we're talking about, and that's what we're doing on a daily basis.
That works perfectly right into the next question, because I agree. I think it's extra pressure. I also believe that it could be at times a distraction if you're concerned about it. So how has the Final Four being in Columbus impacted the team and the coach's mindset? And do you, as a staff and team, feel extra pressure because of it?
I didn't know the Final Four was in Columbus. No, obviously it's a great story. We're really proud of the hard work that Linda Logan and her team at the Columbus Sports Commission has done. We're proud of the people at Ohio State that have spent endless times over the past 2 years preparing for this as we're hosting. Yeah, obviously it's out there. But as you know, and anyone that's ever been a part of basketball, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of luck. It takes a lot of matchups. It takes a lot. And so at no point, unless that you're just going to say, well, Ohio State should be in the Final Four because it's in Columbus, which there's zero correlation with that. I think that you understand that this is a tough thing to accomplish. And again, if we stay focused on the daily grind of what makes us great and how we can be better, then we're going to have a better chance of reaching those goals. Is it a goal to us? Yes, it's a goal every year, whether it's in Ohio, Tampa, or LA. It doesn't matter. That is a goal of Ohio State because we want to be an elite basketball program. But is this year even more pressure? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that that's not the case. I'm going to say our girls are more worried about winning a Big Ten and more worried about trying to get better and prepare themselves for the postseason.
That being said, knowing how difficult it is to make it to a Final Four, and I know Coach McGuff is a history guy as well as you are. When was the last time an Ohio State team was in the Final Four? And actually, when was the last time they were in a Sweet 16?
Well, the last time we were in a Final Four was with a young lady from Logan, Ohio named Katie Smith, and she was a freshman of the 1993 team. Went down and played Texas Tech, who also had a player that you might know named Cheryl Swoops. And they went off for 40-plus points, but Texas Tech ended up winning the game and I think winning the national championship that year. That was the last time Ohio State and the only time Ohio State's been in the Final Four. And as for the Sweet 16, we've been to back-to-back Sweet 16s under Coach McGuff and this team. And so, our goal is to get past that and to win a Big Ten championship first and foremost. So that's what we're going to focus on every day.
I know that it's been back-to-back Sweet 16s, and I know that it's been back-to-back disappointing losses in the Sweet 16s, but the matchups themselves is what creates that toughness to even get to the Final Four. You have to hope and pray that maybe you end up being a 2 seed or a 3 seed with a decent path. Correct. Instead of murderer's row like you guys had 2 years ago, just to even try to get to the Sweet 16. So
yeah, I mean, that year, it's just, again, it's luck. I mean, that year we had to play Tennessee, who, was way underrated. They come into a 7 seed when they really were like a 4 seed. And, it's tough. And again, there's so many things that go into this, Chris, that make this a really challenging thing. And so I think that you just gotta take it game by game, and you got to control what you can control. And what we can control is this game against Nebraska. And then we move on to the next game. And then hopefully by the end of the Big Ten season, we've worked hard enough because of our preseason and because of our Big Ten that we can be one of the 16 teams that host. And it starts there.
Yep. Well, if you end up, since you can't get me any of the Final Four tickets, I promise that Charles and I will be there for the hosting games at least. Maybe you can hook us up some good tickets for the early rounds.
Absolutely.
One of the questions I have is, like, you look at the Ohio State football team and the basketball team, especially with like Urban Meyer bringing in certain types of players, so that way the chemistry and everybody gels together. When you have one of the best players in the nation with Kelsey, I mean, how does that help that she's not a person who is about themselves, but is about the team and about making everybody else around them better?
Well, I mean, I think Kelsey has been, an incredible player and will be one of the best players to ever play at Ohio State, if not the best, and one of the best players to ever play in the NCAA history. I mean, she has a chance this year to, sort of pass up into second place and even go into first place over Kelsey Plum. And, obviously, great players want to play with other great players. And she has been an attraction for our team. She's a great teammate. She's about winning, and one of the hardest workers I've ever seen play the game. I mean, it's daily that she spends extra hours trying to better herself and her game and to get better. And I think that what makes her so special is she's such a kind kid as well. I mean, she's about impacting others, and so she definitely has. When you have players like that, I think the biggest thing that you're getting at is them being able to see how a system, and in that system, how you can flourish. And so when you talk about recruiting, you talk about trying to get players that fit your system and that want to play your way. And I think there's a lot of coaches out there, and there's not very many that are better than Kevin McGuff at sharing that system with future players and showing them what that is that they can be a part of.
Patrick, the last time that Charles and I spoke on String Ting, we were discussing a part of the schedule that we think, there's no method to how the Big Ten schedules, and I understand you not being able to voice your opinion about this, and having a Michigan team, within a couple weeks of each other, and then you step right into Maryland on January 22nd and follow that up with Iowa, Sparty, and Penn State, which are arguably the top 4 teams other than Ohio State in the conference. Did we get it right talking about this stretch, or how do you see the early schedule, or is the tougher part of the slate later in the Big Ten Conference?
No, I think that you're spot on. I think the January schedule, starting on January 4th and going down, is just it's crazy. And so January is a tough month. I mean, I think that kids are starting back with school. It's a new semester. Travel, obviously, we're at Michigan, we're at Indiana, we're at Maryland, we're at Iowa. 3 out of 4 away from the 13th through the 25th. And again, like you said, these are the best teams in the league. And so you can either make an excuse or complain about it, or you can say, hey, this is what we did in the preseason. We're prepared for this, and this is going to make us better. And so we have to come together as a team and really find a way to win. And by the way, you earn a title. It's not given to you. And so if you want to win something that's so precious as a Big Ten title, then you have to go and fight. And that's what we're going to have to do in the month of January. But that is definitely the month where we got to come away playing some of our best basketball in order to get through it.
And if I'm not mistaken, just the early BTN schedule and some ESPN, I think all of those games, save for the second Michigan game, are on national TV, so to speak. So everybody who loves Ohio State women's basketball will be able to actually see the Lady Buckeyes play in January as they're trying to lock things down. Real quick, in addition to that question, Patrick, has the Big Ten quietly become the best women's conference in the NCAAs right now?
I don't know about all that. I think that it's definitely an extremely competitive conference because of the coaches in the league. I think that across the board, it's a very top-heavy year for all the conferences. So there's 4 or 5 teams that really stand out in the Pac-12 and the SEC and the ACC and then the Big Ten. And I think that that's pretty much – you can argue that the Big Ten is by far one of the best conferences in the country. Absolutely.
You guys have definitely had an eventful pre-conference slate. You've honored 3 elite scorers, which includes Kelsey Mitchell becoming the all-time 3 leader in NCAA history. She's the conference leader in scoring. You've mentioned that she has a chance to secure 2 for sure with her what she's averaging and what she's been doing, and maybe number 1 depending on how deep you guys can go in the tourney. And then, as we discussed, Stephanie Mavunga has 1,000 rebounds in her career as a player. Where does this team land all time in the Big Ten, and do they have to finish with a Final Four or a national title to cure that?
Yeah, I think it's by far one of the most talented teams Ohio State's ever had. I mean, when you look at the slate of players and the level that what they've accomplished individually and as a team, without a doubt, you could argue we are the most consistent. I mean, back-to-back Sweet 16s, that hasn't happened in a long, long time. Big Ten champions, obviously, that has happened before. But I do think this year their legacy will be told, whether that legacy is consistency or, going to a Final Four or winning a national championship. Without a doubt, you could argue, and I would be willing to argue that this is one of the most talented teams and one of the best teams to ever play at Ohio State.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you, because the only time that I really remember a team that scored the way this team scores was Katie Motter's senior year and that group and the way they played. And, if I'm not mistaken, that was a team that had a surprisingly early exit in the NCAAs. But that's the only team that I can remember that had multiple players that scored 1,000 points. She definitely had 1,000, career rebounder on that team. But this team right now, and with what the coaching staff is doing, has definitely spoke to me as being one of the best that's ever put on the scarlet and gray. And I'm not 100% sold that they've got to go deep in the NCAAs to accomplish that, because I think they've written their history in the numbers, so to speak.
Absolutely. I think that you make a good point. And by the way, the other thing that's not on this docket is the type of people they are. I mean, we had I think our team cumulative GPA with this semester was like a 3.14. We had two kids with a 4.0. I mean, you're talking about kids that go above and beyond, Chris. These are kids that love to work hard. They love to be about each other. And I think that that's going to pay off in the long term. But I think that you're right. They've definitely written a lot of records, and they've definitely earned that because it's a lot of their hard work.
You just mentioned about the GPAs and everything, which is outstanding. And I look back and the programs and the head coaches that Gene Smith has put into place, this is something that is pretty much across the board with Ohio State and has really elevated Ohio State to another level. I mean, how much is that all the coaches get together and work on different things in order to help improve each program, basically, by taking things from other programs?
Oh, it happens all the time. I mean, Gene Smith has created an environment at Ohio State, and that's why he's one of the best athletic directors in the country, if not the best. He's constantly about student athletes and providing for them. There's never been anything that if we went to him and said, hey, this is what we need to make our program better, he's been all about it. And Coach McGuff and all of our staff, we share with the men's basketball staffs with, there's assistant coaches roundtables, there's head coaches. They talk often. And again, you have to understand our goals are all the same. We want to win, but we also want to provide opportunities for our young people. But I think the thing that people don't realize is the amount of support that these student athletes are getting. The people in their corner that Gene and his staff has hired, it's an incredible thing. From student athlete support services, you're talking 600 plus 3.0 or higher student athletes out of 1,000. That's incredible at an academic institution as an elite as Ohio State. You're talking about opportunities to study abroad, to work with Bucks Go Pro, to do a mission trip with Souls for Souls, a Wolstein Leadership Academy to develop leadership. I could go down the list of opportunities that our young women are getting and our student athletes here at Ohio State are getting because of what Gene and his vision and his team has provided. And I think that that's something that we're so blessed and lucky at Ohio State, but that is a byproduct. Our winning is a byproduct of the people that surround our program.
That's a great testament to what Gene Smith has been able to bring in, but it's also a great thing that Kevin McGuff and yourself and the staff has put together. And quickly, not quickly, but describe the staff and everybody's functions. There hasn't been a lot of opportunity to shine some light on people like Coach Mitchell and Beth Howe and the staff, and give us a look inside the staff and what they do on a daily basis. And and what a practice goes, how the practice goes for a team.
Yeah. So, head coach McGuff, he's running the show. It's his vision. This is his, basketball ideas and format and how style of play he wants to play and what we want to look like. And as assistants, our goal is to not only provide support in that and help our student athletes get to that level and to get to his vision, but also to just provide support for him so that we can, help prepare our student athletes, get them to the right places. And, we have 3 assistants, and then we have a video coordinator. Our video coordinator, Sydney Dura, she came from Maryland where she went to school and has had success at other colleges like Florida International University. But, her main focus is, making sure our staff and Coach McGuff and our players get the right film so that we can prepare. She also does a lot with our social media. So you'll see online our social media stuff. She does an incredible job with Gary Pettit, our sports information director, and making sure that our brand is out there. We have an assistant to the head coach as a new role this year, Erica Haney, who actually played for Coach McGuff and won a national championship at Notre Dame. She's definitely brought an incredible way to connect with our players and to make sure that we're constantly in communication with them and meeting their needs. Beth Howe is our director of basketball operations, and Beth's job is the business. She's making sure that we're on budget, our travel's set and aligned, and there's no one more organized in the country than Beth Howe. She's done an incredible job of taking our program to an elite level in that area. And then you have Reed Guzdansky. Reed is our office associate. He came from one of Coach McGuff's former assistants and the head coach at New Mexico, Mike Bradbury's program, and came back to sort of run the office and make sure from a business side and from an operational side, he works hand in hand with Beth to make sure everything's running smoothly. And then as an assistant, Coach Mitchell is incredible. He works with our guards. There's no better guards coach out there that's preparing people and developing them and being more innovative with development than him. And Coach Banks is our recruiting coordinator. She's working her butt off and has done an incredible job in trying to get the right people here and making sure as a staff that we're all on the same page when it comes to recruitment. And she works with me with the post players, and it's all of our jobs. It's every single person's job in some form or fashion to recruit. That's the lifeline of our program. And there's nothing more important than getting the right players to your program.
Absolutely right. Has it been awesome for you as the associate head coach to see Coach McGuff's growth in his short time in Columbus and adapting his? I've seen it because I pay really close attention. He is playing more physical than he did with teams before. Has it been awesome to see him grow in that nature?
Well, I'm so lucky and blessed to be able to learn from him. He has taken my knowledge to the game to the next level and really has taught me so much and given me opportunities that I'll be forever grateful for. He is an incredible basketball coach, extremely high basketball IQ. He has great experiences. I think that there's not a better coach out there that can prepare and adjust in a game, but yet stay true to himself. That's one thing that he's really does an incredible job of doing is being prepared and having our teams prepared. It's just a great opportunity, Chris. I really do feel like I'm the luckiest guy. And if you talk to anybody that knows me, I say that all the time because I truly believe it. I get to go to work for my alma mater, who I really love and believe in. I get to work with people that I love and really enjoy being around, not just colleagues, but friends that push and drive and help make us better each day. And I'm just really lucky to be a part of this program. And I'll tell you that there's not a person or a coach that's happier or more thankful for their job than I am.
Well, I'm definitely one of those fans, and I know there's many, many more that One, we're happy to see you stick around after Coach Foster's exit and then eventual replacement by Coach McGuff. And it's, I've known you for a long time, and it's been a lot of fun watching you grow as a coach and the things that you're doing for your alma mater. And nobody knows how much you love Ohio State as much as I do, except for maybe your parents and your brother, Zach. But it's one of those things where it's just been an honor to have a friendship with you that allows you to come and help us out with this podcast and do this Big Ten preview, and really just a good conversation with you. And the last question before I cut you loose is, what are the goals of this team this season? What does Patrick Klein and Kevin McGuff have up on the wall that the players see every day?
Well, Coach, he talks about goals at the beginning of the season, and I think it was clear that all of them want to win a national championship. I mean, I think that's our driving force and direction every day. That's what we're focused on doing as a program. But I think that if you look really deep, they break down really simple. I think that the first one is to be one of the fastest, most aggressive offenses in the country. And I think that you see that in how we play and how we prepare and how we practice, how we train. And we've had a great success with that over the past 2 years. We were top 5 in scoring this year. I think we're still in top 5 in scoring. I think that the next goal for Coach McGuff was to get better defensively this year, and I think we have. And our goal is to hold teams to 65 points. That's what we try to do on a daily basis. A lot of people watching the game, we play fast, so they're getting more possession. So you can't look at their average because they're going to play faster when they play against us. But if you look at the margin, right now we're probably, I think, exactly at 20 points. And that's what our goal is to be about 20-point margin. Obviously, as you get into Big Ten play, that becomes harder and harder. But that is where you look at, if we have 60, if we hold them to 65 points and we average around 85 in the Big Ten, that's a really darn good thing. And then the last goal, I think, would be to win a Big Ten title. I mean, I think that's really, really hard to come back to back to do. And we're mentally aware and mentally understanding of what it takes now that we've done it last year. But it's harder to come back because, again, everyone is going to play their best game and you have a bullseye on your back. So we're excited for this opportunity. We know what it's going to take, and we're really prepared to do that. And again, I can't thank the fans enough because I want them to understand that we make Ohio State a really hard place to play. And it's with your guys' support that we get these opportunities to host Michigan and Michigan State this year and Rutgers, who are really, really good teams, Indiana coming up. And we need you there to help make us and help reach our goals. So, Chris, thank you so much for the opportunity to come and be a part of this tonight.
Thank you very much for joining us, Patrick, and good luck this evening against Nebraska. Again, fans, he hit the nail on the head. We're the best in the Big Ten in attendance the last 2 years running, and would like to continue that trend. It's a group of the best damn fans in the land that spend their time following Ohio State women's basketball. And thank you very much for being here and making this podcast that much better for everybody.
Thanks so much.
All right, with me has been Associate Head Coach Patrick Klein of Ohio State women's basketball that has joined us for this episode of String Ting. I'd like to thank Shannon Sommers for joining us and for producing and doing everything that he does. Until next time, we thank you for joining us here on String Ting on Silver Bullets podcast of the Ozone Radio Network.